My story begins last year. My girlfriend, now fiance, and I were going back to Huntington, Pennsylvania to meet the family. And like any good family meeting, for the first time, we had to sit down and strategize. It's not because my family was that weird or anything like that. Actually, they're super normal. They're rural Pennsylvania, kind of Midwesterners, you know. They're like tuna casserole, you know, kind of beige, a little inoffensive, a lot of shit just kind of shoved beneath the surface. That's kind of my family, except for the matriarch of my family, which is my grandma, Alice Overly. And if you are close to me, you've heard Alice Overly's stories for years. She's kind of a legend out here. She looks kind of like a Hallmark Channel grandma. It's like perfect, like white hair, and she's beautiful, and she just is smiling all the time. But take like that body and fill it with the opinions of like a hardcore men's rights activist. And that's Alice Overly. And my girlfriend and I, we're super liberal. We like listen to the Savage Love Cast. She has a shirt that says like capitalism is shitty, and we're on opposite sides of the spectrum, me and Alice Overly, and Elise and Alice Overly. So when planning this trip, we sat down and I was like, look, I know how to deal with her. You cannot win. You just can't win. And I learned this when I was about 16. So I had this argument. We had arguments a lot when I was younger because we were on opposite sides of the political spectrum, and I lived with her. My whole family lived with my grandma. She kind of took us in a rough time in a bankruptcy, and we lived in her house. And it was her house. And we got into a fight once about evolution, and I don't remember the exact start of the fight. I remember the third law of thermodynamics came up a few times. I don't know what that is, but she said it like 4 times in a row, like third law, third law, third law. Okay. But she said something to the effect of, you know, evolution, they call it the theory of evolution for a reason, because it's just a theory, not a fact whatsoever. And I was like, technically, yeah, but they also call like gravity a theory. So, you know, and she was like, exactly. And I was like, oh my God. I will never win an argument with this woman. She hasn't been convinced of gravity yet. Like, she's still picturing maybe like God just like fondling the earth, and that's how we all stay up, I guess. So I was like, okay, you know what? It's not worth the emotional investment. It's not worth the time. I'm just going to stop fighting her so hard. And for 10 years, I just kind of did what my parents are really good at, which is shove it all down. And I didn't have to really fight that much either once I moved out. It wasn't that big of a deal. But when we're going back, and I'm introducing my new girlfriend, we've been dating for a year, and no one has met her. It was stressful, and we were just like, okay, let's agree. Like, no fighting. We're just going to, whatever she says, and she'll say some crazy shit, just going to ignore it. Cool. And you're like, okay, we can do that. So we get there, and we go for Thanksgiving, and it's 2 days after my grandma's 91st birthday, and we give her like the frame with a picture of us. Easy gift for anyone over 75. Just do that all the time. It's like the most wonderful thing. Give her a card and everything, and we settle in for food and football, which is all Thanksgiving is in Huntington, Pennsylvania, and still all it is, really. And it takes about 2 quarters, I think, until it gets a little testy. ESPN's Michelle Tafoya comes out on the television to talk about what she talked about with the players and the coaches in the locker room. And my grandma, sitting in her recliner chair, rocking back and forth, just says, "Get that woman off the field." She looks around like we're like on board too, and she's like, I can't stand it when women get in a boys' game. Why won't they just let the boys play with the boys? And in another world, I'm like, that's the most Savage Love Cast thing I've ever heard. But in this context, it's really shitty and uncomfortable. And Elise's face turns bright red, and we're all just kind of sitting there. And I was like, great, let this one pass. But she leans over to me, and she's like, now, how do you feel about women on the field in a man's game? And I had this moment, and I like, ooh, I wish that I thought about it. I was like, oh, I should say, and I was like, I feel like we're going to need some help from the Ravens to win the AFC North this year. That's probably what we'll need. It's a football thing. Just kind of ducked under. And we avoided a couple other like weird like car accidents of conversation. Cooking came up at one point. She asked Elise like, "Hey, do you cook? Like, what do you like to cook in the kitchen?" And Elise was like, "Actually, Bennett's more of the kind of chef out of the two of us." And she was like, "That'll change," which also did not go over well. And we had like a private bathroom meeting after football, pre-dinner. We went into our half bathroom, which is very small. Both of us just like went in there and we were like, "Okay, here's what we do. We just like keep going. Elisa's like, "I'm gonna fucking explode on your grandma in front of your family, and everyone's gonna hate me, and your parents aren't saying anything, and they're very quiet, and it's disturbing, and you aren't saying anything either." And I was like, I know, but she like, you can't win with her. You just can't win with her, okay? So we calm down, go to the table for Thanksgiving dinner. Happens at like 4:00, and we settle in, and my grandma says grace. She's at the head of the table, which also Elise is like ready to like get some food. And she's like, "All right, grace." And we're like, "Oh yeah, that's right, okay." And she says, "Yeah, all right, well, thank you, dear God, for all our family, and bless this food and make it health to our bodies. And I really want to say thank you to Jesus for having Elise here. It's really been wonderful, and she seems lovely, and we're happy to have her. Amen." And I was like, "Oh, okay, getting a shout out in the prayer. I think we're back on top here. I think we're going to be good." And food gets passed around a bit, and Elise reaches for the turkey plate and goes for a drumstick, and my grandma snatches it away from her. And she said, "Men, would you like the drumsticks?" And like, it's not about Elise, but it feels bad, and like tears are welling up in her eyes. I feel so horrible. I had this like awful feeling in my chest right here, and I'm like, "Oh, this is just, come on, why do you have to do this?" And like everyone else is kind of quiet. My dad's like, "Yeah, I'll have a drumstick," because he's not paying attention. And I was like, "Oh God." And before like Elise starts to just like cry, I was like, okay, Grandma, can we like chat in the kitchen real quick? Just hang on. And she's like, "No, I'm good." And I was like, "Come on, let's help in the kitchen." You know, the thing that people say when they want to fucking talk. So we go into the kitchen, and everyone else is eating. Elise goes to the bathroom, and for the first time, we kind of like, I don't even remember a lot of what I said, honestly. We just kind of start arguing again, just like the old days, but with way more emotion. I'm not trying to be logical about things. I'm just pissed off. And I said, "You can't treat her like this. You know, this is like my girlfriend, and we're trying to be equals here, and like this is just wrong. And you've been rude to her, and you've been telling her that she's a terrible cook, and that she's going to change, and that I'm a bad chef or something. And you're just," and we go back and forth, and it's ugly. And I have this weird, I'm so conflict averse at this point that I have like a separation where I can like see what's happening at the same time. I'm like, well, this is just crazy. I'm having like a real adult conversation. I'm expressing myself with my grandma and having it out a bit, and I haven't done this in so long, and fucking standing up for my hopefully one day fiance, and like, hell yeah, okay, this is good. And I kind of snap back in and haven't really been listening to what she's been talking about. And she said something like, "Well, it's my house, and men get the turkey first." And I just was like, I put my hand up, which is never a good thing to do in an argument. And I was like, "Look, just go apologize. We'll call it even, and like, just please be nice, okay?" And I like turn to go back into the dining room. And I go, and I feel a hand on my shoulder, and then I kind of turn around a little bit, and I feel and she spanked me. She spanked a 27-year-old man who like earns a wage and had pride before this moment. And I don't know when the last time you were spanked was in a non-sexual situation, but it is awful. If you've ever gotten like tears of confusion where like it didn't hurt that bad. She's 91, but just the like the shock from someone just hitting you on the ass in such like a you're a baby kind of way was, I just started crying. I just started crying like a baby. I was like, what? And I couldn't get any words out. I was just like, no. That's all I said was no. And she looked at me and she had sort of the same face that I had, but with less tears. And she kind of just broke down and she was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have such a short fuse now. I just don't feel the way I used to. I'm just getting up there and my fuse is so short. You know, the words don't come out right. And she just kind of like listed all these different things that she was kind of feeling as a person in her 90s. She was like, and I just feel ignored and washed off. And she was kind of just talking. I don't know. We started to kind of have that real adult conversation in a way. And I was just like, I'm sorry. Still, please don't hit me. And still, please be nice to my girlfriend. But we kind of listened to each other for the first time. Instead of just going back and forth on these big theoretical issues, we actually listened to what we were feeling. And yeah, it lasted a few minutes, and we kind of went back in. Although on the way back in, she was just like, though, I'll stand by it, that sometimes people are never too old for a spanking. And I was like, that's the second most Dan Savage thing you said today. That's my story.